Pardon me. Excuse me? I appreciate it. How long have you been in Roosevelt for?
Well, I guess it's on and off for probably about 20 years.
20? Wow.
Came out of I was studying with Gregorio Prestopino, and he said, come out and spend the summer here while we're away. And then we bought a house.
Can you tell me something about what inspires you? It looks like you're very inspired by nature.
Yes, I am. Nature and things in the sea, you know, shells and fish and things that aren't in here.
Really beautiful. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying getting to know your work.
Thanks. Every artist likes to be enjoyed. Well, I've lived here for 32 years, and moved here when my kids were little. Now they've grown up. I started painting about 12 years ago, and I try to do some scenes for Roosevelt because I love Roosevelt, and there's some beautiful things around here.
What exactly inspires you?
Shapes, light inspires me a lot. I love, you know, the early morning hours are great. Sometimes, you know, at dusk. The light is just a certain, it's the scenery in a certain way, and that inspires me usually.
How long have you been in Roosevelt now?
It'll be a year in July.
Oh, wow.
We closed on our house the end of June, and we spent that next week of the 4th of July, one of the hottest weeks of the year, moving in.
What inspires you?
I certainly see my boots, my sneakers around the house, and I see Steve's boots definitely around the house. And it's just, I don't know, they're personal.
Yeah.
And I wanted to add a few little objects with mine. I always see Steve's boots at the end of the day, so I gave it an evening look. It's been such an honor to be in this show, to be in such great company on these walls here.
Yes.
It's definitely an honor, and thank you.
I actually will be moving into Roosevelt at the end of July, but I've known a lot of people in this town. It's a great town, Roosevelt, and I've been an artist for most of my life. Worked in the business world in art as well, running an art gallery in Soho. I've worked with a lot of mediums, and I also love working with a lot of artists, as well as, you know, obviously doing artwork myself. A couple of my pieces, just to talk about quickly. I used to do a lot of metal and wood sculptures when I was an undergrad at Rutgers, wanted to incorporate that as well in another material. So here we have wood and metal components, and I have the woman actually with the arm of metal, sort of, you know, to show the vigor and strength of women, because usually they're identified in a more soft way. So I tried to identify the darker texture component with the man, but actually the woman has the strong hold as well as men. So it was actually a play on a lot of things, love and just relationships, and a lot of people have interpreted it in many ways. I actually really enjoyed working with that medium because I got to get really, you know, gritty with welding and wood shop, and just, it was great. So, and then I also have other forms of medium that I have here at the show. I did some photography in New Orleans. I visited New Orleans quite a few times. I'm totally awestruck by their architecture, by the people, just by the little intricate things that you can find that are art. And just something as simple as a doorknob. And New Orleans is known very well for its cast iron fences. In fact, they took a lot of pieces of fences back from antique shops. And then the Spanish moss, which obviously you don't have here, but it's so beautiful, and it flows. It's almost like art itself, just the way it'll catch a tree or catch the wind, and it's really quite beautiful. I really enjoyed taking a lot of pictures of it, because a lot of people thought that didn't know it was New Orleans, it was a spider web or something. So I really love working with black and white, but I have worked with color, more color photography when I do like naturescapes, like when I've been out west and I took pictures in Yellowstone. I did a lot of color, but for the most part, when I'm in the black room, I do totally in the dark room, like playing, and I'll make different grays and I'll make different levels. But that's one of the things that I do love about black and white. I've gotten away from it and gotten into more color, but I do think black and white makes you have to think of the colors on your own through the different grays, which that's why I love black and white.
Okay,
So
all right.
I think that's also why when I draw too, I like to draw in pencil or charcoal. I like to leave some of my portraits out, almost like a sculpture unfinished, almost like how Michelangelo didn't always finish his sculptures. I do that all the time, and it's not because I got tired of and I didn't want to finish it. I do that on purpose, so you can try to find the lines on your own of where the face will end. But I do like to do a lot of people, meaning as you see with the sculpture, people with the drawings. But when I do photography, I do like to do different things that you might not always notice when you're walking around. But also in photography, I did a series. Actually, this was in a show. It's a very long series, but here I have two pieces of it. It's kind of, I call it the dresser top memories. It's actually pictures of an old photo album with other things that remind you of a time in the past. Like for me, these are pictures of my parents, and then other things. But it can be anyone's, you know, voyeuristic approach onto someone's dresser top. You almost feel like you're eavesdropping, or you shouldn't be there. It's their dresser. What's going on in the pictures? What's happened to these people? Are they still here? You know, what's the meaning of this? And it kind of gives you that emotional feeling where you want to know more about what's going on with the people in the picture. But these actually are two of my favorite pieces, and I have a whole series of these, and so I'm glad they got into the show. And I must say, I've met some wonderful artists here at the show. I'm so happy to be a part of the show. People like Gabrielle and Jim and Naomi and my sister Claudia, who's also an artist in the show as well.
Who was sort of your introduction to this town?
She really has been my introduction to this town,
Right,
which you know, I'm looking forward to next year and being more a part of everything with the shows and the community and making new friends and continuing to be able to display my artwork and look at everyone else's.
Since 1936, my family were among the first 7 families who moved to town. My father was one of the people that, my father and mother were one of the people that were the original organizers and members of the town cooperative. And they moved here in 1946 on Rochdale Avenue. When you come into town just beyond the gas station, there are 7 houses that lead up to the school. Those were the first 7 houses that people moved into.
Oh, okay.
Since that time, after graduating from high school, I lived in Washington, New York, San Francisco, California, Europe, whatever. And around 1950, 51, I had married and living in California. We decided to buy a house here.
Okay.
And since then, we've been living here in and out when we're traveling or back.
Okay.
You see, this factory where this is taking place was the original clothing factory where the people who moved out here worked.
Right.
And my father worked in this factory, and so did my mother. My mother was a seamstress, and my father pressed, I pressed the clothes with those machines.
Okay.
But that wasn't, I was not born in the United States, and we had been here for about 10 years, so he was kind of doing whatever there was to do. That's what everybody, all these immigrants did. The description of their intellectual life had nothing to do with what they had to do for a living. They were quite intelligent and engaged people. Nobody who does any work can really tell you exactly why you do this or that. When you're working on a piece that's talking to you and you're talking back to it, and you're every bit of interaction results in something you put out there. People who give or write long things about art and how it evolves and all that stuff don't know what the hell they're talking about unless they've done it. It's really a fraud. They're more interested in it. I've done a lot of writing, so writing is a bit like drawing or painting, in that you get so involved in the structure of the sentence that you have to watch yourself not to get the facts wrong.
Yeah, right.
If you're writing facts.
Yeah.
And that's the same. Whenever you do something, it's a second by second thing, and nobody can really. I don't know what it is they can tell you about their work.
Okay. Wow.
Especially since it keeps developing over time and changing.
Wow.
What else can I not tell you?
How long have you been in Roosevelt?
About 3.5 years. It was my Valentine gift to myself. I closed Valentine's Day 2001, I think it was. So it was the best Valentine's gift I ever got.
Cool. Are you in one of the in the newer house or in one of the Bauhaus type?
One of the Bauhauses. It's one of the connected homes, but it's one of the 2-story Bauhaus houses. I do a lot of work, whether it's portraiture by camera or by painting or drawing of people I know.
Okay.
And I try to get a side of people that you don't normally see. This actually is my niece in this picture, and they're leaving for Crete, for Greece, and it just struck me how she was lined up in front of the
conveyor.
Yeah, in front of the suitcase, and she was too short to look over, and she was not even the height of the behind. I thought it was funny to have the adult behind, and there's a little kid peeking over. And then that's my niece and nephew. They're very different personalities. This is actually part of the series where he's always lazy and takes a long time to do things, and she's always ready right away, so they kind of look like an old married couple where she's waiting for him to be finished, and there he is still goofing around. I do like sharp contrast. This photograph, the view from Asbury Park, I waited till a certain time of sunset to get this one, and then the photo that's over there, that was more fortuitous. I happened to catch the cat just at a moment of coming out of the darkness. It was a very quick photograph. I happened to catch it. But I like to do, I also do abstract work or conceptual work, so I don't know how to explain my work.
It's fabulous.
Thank you. I like to also write and perform and stuff like that, so I'm very happy to be here in Roosevelt.
How long have you been in Roosevelt?
About 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
My son was a year and a half when he moved here.
Oh, okay. What brought you to this town?
We knew some people that lived here, and we thought it was a neat town. We were looking for a house.
Okay.
This is where we ended up. I like the use of color and transparencies and I think nature. And my other painting, which is completely different, is nature. I like landscapes too.
Where is this
This
now?
one is Cape Cod,
Oh, okay.
which for many years we were going up there every single year. Haven't been there in about 2 years now.
All right, yeah.
Lots of photos of it I
Nice.
paint from.
Do you come from a family of artists?
Yes, my parents were both artists, very good artists, and they had an advertising agency, and they were painters and graphic artists.
We've been here for 15 years. We had a musician friend who was a teacher at the school at the time. We were living somewhere else, and we learned about it through him and met some of the musicians who lived here at the time. And then a few years later, when we started looking for a house, we just sort of stumbled across it and said, oh yeah, Roosevelt. And we saw our house and just fell in love with it, so that's how we got here. Just in general, that I think I'm a kind of a visual person, and when I go places, I see things, and it's like, wow, I see something, and I go, wow. And the only way I know how to share it with people, to share that wow or that sense of beauty with people or whatever it is I see, is to take a photograph of it and to try to capture that emotion. My work is, my professional work is so left brain and so intellectual that this is kind of my outlet in terms of this is what gets my right brain going. It's all when I take photographs, it's all instinctual in terms of I just look at something and I go, wow, I want to take a picture of that. I look through the lens until I see something that I say I really want to share that, and they snap the shutter. This is really kind of an evolution for me because these are much older pictures. I used to do black and white a lot back when I was in a situation where I had more access to a dark room. With Roosevelt houses with no basement, it's hard to have a dark room.
Right.
So in recent years, I've been doing more color, mostly color slides. So a lot of my work actually isn't in a way that I can show, but these are a few of the better ones that I've had printed up.
Some of your more favorite ones.
Actually, this is because it was printed up because it was one of my favorites. And the other one was actually, this was originally done on a color print film, so it was easier to make a print up. But most of the stuff that I really like is in slides. And I share my slides with friends, but I haven't, this is the first time I've actually showed my work in public other than just in my living room.
How long have you been in Roosevelt now?
About 2 years.
2 years? What brought you here?
Really the architecture is what I really liked. I like a certain sense of form. To me, things have to have kind of a continuity, and I tend to go with geometric kind of shapes or things that kind of flow together. And there isn't really much overall philosophy behind it other than that. Yeah, moving more into sculptural things. I just find 3 dimensions just more interesting at this point.
Interesting.
Because I've done photography and printmaking for about 12 years or so.
Oh, okay.
Which is not a long time, but still I'm kind of more interested in 3 dimensions at this point.
Okay, I noticed on your sculpture it is it's one color. You into the plays on textures and the or do you use color as well in your sculpture?
Yeah, I have used it. I just didn't on this because it was easiest just to work with the material as it was, and I was really concentrating on the form itself and trying to make the cuts to conform with my idea of what I wanted to look like. So I didn't really concern myself with color.
Okay.
But I have a few that are multicolored.
How long have have you been in Roosevelt?
About 7 years. Well, actually, I was selling these prints at the townwide garage sale, just I don't know, trying to make some money. And one of the artists that has a work here came by.
I think Deirdre, right?
Sheila, I think.
Sheila. Oh, okay. Okay.
Came and said that I should be selling it in a garage sale, and then she told me I should come down to the art show and put it up. Yeah, so I was just like, wow, okay. Inspiration for me is pretty much anime-based Japanese animation. Yeah, it's a big inspiration for me since it's a little bit more complicated than average cartoon. So I had seen a bunch of publicity put on like an elf kind of character.
Okay.
So, and there's like a whole bunch of publicity on like the ears and everything. So I don't know. I've never really been good at drawing ears either. So I just.
I think we've been here 7 years. Ron, my husband, got lost coming home from work one day and drove to the town. We'd always known about Roosevelt and had heard about it, but we didn't know where it was. And anyway, so he drove through it and we loved it. Got home, said, we have to go out there tomorrow. I have to show you this place. This is great. So we came out, loved it, and rented a house for 2 years and then bought it. I'm a graphic artist. I design book interiors, and so I think that I use a grid a lot. So that's certainly a big influence in the work. And I love typography, and also the medium, the collage, is something I don't have much of a space, studio space. So they're small because of that, and also the collage is a medium that you can kind of start and finish, in a couple weeks, or, you don't have to be with it for any great length of time. It's something you can start and then put away and pick back up. So it's very much fits into my life. So that's it.
How long have you been in Roosevelt?
I was just trying to figure it out. I have a spot in the cemetery now. I think it's been 27 years. 77, 24, 27 years.
Well, and
1977.
And you're a taxidermist.
Yes.
And I hear your father and grandfather as well.
Yes, I'm third generation. My grandparents, grandmother and grandfather both practiced taxidermy. We say the business was established in 1921 when the first deer head was mounted for a paying customer. And then over the years, we just my father got into it, and then I got into it, and kept the family business going for 82 years, 83 years, wow. 83 years. Yes. One of the things I like about taxidermy is you have an animal that dies, and you're able to salvage it and work with it and then recreate the illusion of life again for a greater purpose. So the individual, is dead and it's sad, but yet if it's done well as a taxidermy piece, it can be used for science and education in many museums, and it tells a story of the species. And conservation is the wise use of our natural resources. So rather than see an animal that's freshly killed and died go to waste or decompose like most of them do, it's nice to salvage a few to practice the art of taxidermy. Yeah, we're under the deadline, just like many people are, getting ready for the Olympics. I know they're going crazy over in Greece. But I knew the art show was coming up, and I asked the Peabody Museum if if they could wait till the June 7th to pick up the pieces. So tomorrow morning they're going to be coming down to pick up these pieces and pack them for shipment to Greece.
Wow. Yes.
Because they still have to put the diorama together over there. I'm proud to be a part of the Roosevelt art world.
How did you get involved with Jacob Landau?
Well, many years ago, about 15 years ago, I was interviewing artists for a show that I was going to have in Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania. And I asked him to be part of this event. And from that point to now, it's been a wonderful journey. When I met him, he was doing work that was a much more of a political nature. The work that you see here is early work that he did for illustrations, and he was an incredibly adept illustrator and had many, many commissions. The particular images you see here are for Columbia Records and for other record albums. And he was also commissioned to do illustrations for TV Guide, for the Conley Corporation of America, for Reader's Digest. He had a very prolific illustration career. And he also illustrated over 150 books.
Wow.
And an avid reader, he was an avid reader, and his interpretations were very dramatic, very powerful, and distinctly Landau.
Wow.
And you can, today I was looking through certain files, and you can just trace his history and his line. And he always had a very free-flowing line. Even though it would be representational, you could always decipher his work because it was very powerful and energetic. And his studio is open. We keep it open, and it's available for tours. And I personally feel very humble and appreciative that his work is in this show. And I look forward to being part of this event in the future because it's been extremely exciting.
I've been here, I think about 18 years. My brother had been living here. I lived up in New York. We were looking for a place that was affordable and also, a nice place. And since we knew about Roosevelt, we've been here so often because of my brother. And there was a house on the market. It was cheap enough. So we bought it. And the rest is, I'm still here. My love is abstract expressionism. But this was something where I was kind of playing with shapes, like the circle, the line. Also, if you look at primitive artwork or cave paintings, and you look at the same thing, they use certain lines, shapes. So originally, the painting was like this.
I'm just going to give her a quick kiss.
The motif was this.
You want to talk to me for 2 minutes?
Well, actually, these two.
Watch yourself.
And I decided, well, you can't just have the two. You do like 3 lines of them, so you have this kind of visual thing. At least, have something else going on. And this was fine until I got bored with it, and then I turned it upside down. And somehow I thought they looked more like clowns, and now the motif kind of got a little bit thinner. Yeah, and it was just it was very interesting. It was just, I figured people look at it, they may say something, oh, look, clowns. You can walk through any time.
No, I don't want to.
And this thing was, again, just something they're all latex, they're all acrylics.
Okay.
And I just had this idea of this red, like looking at a red sun. And I said, on a checkerboard background. So I kind of did this. And each one is actually hand painted or spackled rather, because I don't use a brush. I use actually a knife, spackling knife and the paint is about that thick. And so each one is individual. And the same thing down here with the sun. It's actually sections, long sections. If you could actually touch it, that's the whole idea. I like, you can touch these paintings because you can see that they're actually almost three-dimensional.
Yeah, it's very clean and textural at the same time.
Yes. And then the whole idea, and then I just put the red there to kind of balance it out. But it was just, again, something that looked interesting and something that people could look at. And it was very simple, but wow, it will strike you. So,
wow.
A lot of my other pieces are much more abstract, but they deal with very real things, human figures, things like that. They're very colorful, they're very large. These were kind of the smallest pieces that I could find.
I wasn't born here, but I've lived here for many years.
What brought you here?
Cheap rent.
I can respect that.
No, but I liked it partly also because the people here were extremely friendly, and I noticed it the very first day that I was looking for a house. Well, I'm interested in a mood, to try to capture a mood through the scene. I usually will paint a picture over a number of days.
Oh, okay.
And usually I'll paint outdoors and on the site because I'm interested in nature. This is an interesting place to paint. These guys were harvesting bok choy, and here's the little car. I wanted to put the people in the picture, but they asked me, please do not paint us because we are not legal. So I didn't put them in. That often happens to me with paintings, that I'll have scenes where there are people and I leave the people out.
I've been living in Roosevelt for 28 years, I think. This weekend, well, not this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I think, was 28 years. My sister-in-law used to live here. She is actually a stained glass artist. And we liked visiting here. We liked the nature of the town, the art aspect, and the fact that it's close to lots of things that we like, both nature and the city.
Wow. And I noticed you have a lot of natural finishes on your works. Very natural.
Yes, very natural there.
Now you did two different kind of firings, right? A pit fire.
A pit firing, which is this, which is like what you do actually, pit firing, right? I'm going to do more of that. I sold one of my pit fired pots.
Oh,
tiny little black one, if you had noticed it, I don't know. It was just a small, simple pot, so that was kind of inspiring. Because I've sold plenty of pots in the past, but I actually haven't put out pit-fired stuff before.
Nice.
So that adds in. It's nice to get feedback on that.
Cool. And you teach ceramics as well, right?
Well, I don't now, but I have at different times. I used to teach in the Roosevelt School.
Okay.
Years ago as artist in residence. And I used to teach it. I taught in Petty School, I taught in Hightstown, I taught in my studio. But pottery is actually kind of a very part-time thing right now.
I bought the house about 2 years ago. I moved in last year. So I guess I've been here a year. Mixed medium together. There's always unexpected things that happen. And I like to actually respond to the work itself as it's developing. Something happens when you take different materials that you don't know what's going to happen. You see something happen and then you work with that, so that it's almost like there's a dialogue between the materials, what you're working on, and your response to it. It's a give and take between you and the materials.
We rented a house here several years before, and so that's how we found about the town. And when we started looking to buy a house, it was a natural choice. I work in a lot of different mediums, but with drawing, just simple pencil. That's what I like.
I've been here about 13 and a half years. My husband found a job in New Jersey, and we looked all over the middle part of New Jersey, and we settled in Roosevelt because of its strong feeling of cohesive neighborhood. Color really inspires my work in painting and drawing, which I do a lot of. That is more of the line and the feeling of texture and the tonal qualities.
Cabinet with a face.
Well, what came first, the cabinet or the face?
Well, faces came from a long time ago. I've been drawing little faces in corners of notebooks as a child all my life. I didn't realize until I went back and looked at all this stuff. And I've been a cabinet maker for 20-something, 30 years now.
Now, what were you always you were into wood first and then you started drawing the faces, or?
No, I started drawing faces back in high school. And then I became, you know, a teacher of woodworking. I've always been interested in the creative arts. Did some painting when I was younger. Just like everybody else, wrote poetry in college. Took a lot of classes in art in school. But I've drawn a lot of these over the years. And then I decided I wanted to build one. So I built it. This is basically a prototype. It's not a finished piece. It's not hardwood. It's just made of cheap woods and stuff like that. But it worked. And it's a lot of fun. Now I want to do a couple more if I find the time. I came here 26 years ago because the houses were cheap. And this house had a studio in the backyard and it suited my needs. And I opened up a cabinet shop and ran it for about 15 years before I went back to teaching. Basically it was because it was cheap. But then I discovered all the great artists and got to know, you know, Johnny and Prestapino and Landau and Stephen Martin and the rest of the crew. And a lot of writers and poets in town.
Wow.
I love it. I had a studio in the factory for, I don't know, 10 years or so, right next door to Johnny Shawn. So that was a big inspiration for me, working with Johnny.
Nice. Now you just did a collaborative piece with him, you were saying.
Well, I didn't collaborate, basically. I do the technical stuff. He wants to join the pieces together, and we have to make square cuts on pieces of logs and stuff like that, so I help him with the joinery. When I work with Johnny, he's the boss, and I'm the technician. I don't do the creative part. If he asks me a question, of course I'll help him with that. But mostly I pull back and let him be the artist, which is the way it should be in those cases. But I truly enjoy that work.
Nice. And I noticed in your studio you had a piece that you had made and your sister painted.
The piece right over there behind you. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's right.
I've been into boxes though for many years. Cabinets are a box.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
now, did you give her the box and then she was inspired by the shape?
Yes, I just delivered the box, that's all.
Yeah, because they both go so well together.
Yes. It wasn't a great commercial success, although we didn't expose it too much. So she'll get the box back. She's asking for it.
I don't blame her.
It's been great. I love living in this town. I like the people I know here. And it's been nice to be around all these artists. Very inspiring.
I try very hard to just kind of, you know, reveal something of the person as if they might be able to start speaking to you at some moment and let you know, what it is that they're thinking about. And if I kind of make you feel that way, then I did a good job. I'm kind of a new painter. I've only been painting for a little over 3 years now, so. It's,
wow.
Well, I mean, I've been an artist for over 20 years, and I've done a lot of portrait sculpture. But I started doing portrait painting a little over 3 years ago. Actually, I am influenced by ancient cultures, so that, and certainly the pregnancy of the figure, the female figure, is reminiscent of fertility figures that have been, have really influenced me in the past. But yeah, the biggest influence with this body of work that these come from are from ancient Egyptian ushabtis, which are those, very beautiful burial figures that that people, love to have with them, when they were buried. So I elongate it, and I've made certain choices about removing the limbs, the arms particularly, and the heads, but the overall monoped feel, through the legs with almost a wrapping, which is disappearing in these pieces, but actually occurred in the earlier pieces, like this smaller bronze, really were reminiscent of the ushabti, which, for those who may not know what an ushabti is...
Which I'm one of those.
Okay. Well, this is an ushabti. Okay. So there was something very, inspiring to me. I don't know if, I was very moved by this form. There was something very compelling, is a better word. I was compelled by this form to kind of investigate further, and since there's so many different, influences, I was able to incorporate this one very much so in some of that series of work, which I really like. So, and, I clearly changed the proportions, but I like that the strength, the linearness, and the monoped, which actually, was an outgrowth of some of these other figures that I've done, which are very large, volumes, but they're more or less, just also.
They still come from one form, it seems.
Well, also what I've done is I play with the proportions of the forms, so that the lower half of the bodies are larger, and they become, more in terms of their proportions. The proportions shift down as you get up towards the tops of the bodies, so that there's a weight that's in the bottom of the bodies that reads differently in each of the materials, because when I was working in the stone just seemed to naturally want these figures to be heavy at the bottom because of the nature of the material. But when I moved into bronze or plaster or other materials in terracottas, it seemed like they were lifting. Even though I wanted them rooted, it felt like I could be much more free, with the proportions. And that's why some of the limbs and the head started coming off also. But it was fun.
Now, did you carve all of these, or some of them were they built upon?
Well, the two, I call these my kitchen gods. They protect my kitchen. These two actually started, they do have very kind of elaborate armatures inside. They're 2x4s with chicken wire and burlap impregnated plaster, to build it up. And then these are plaster. So it was a lot of adductive and deductive. So it was a combination of like clay modeling, which is, adding to the surface, and like stone carving, taking away. So, and I kept working until I started getting this really graphic kind of a feel, which I then washed with some, acrylic paint, so that the textures would really come up on them, which was really fun.
Wow, they really are wonderful. And I love how almost universal and everymanish these are, and then how personal your portraits are.
Well, thank you.
And they both feel very personal, though.
Well, I mean, the portraits, are, I understand what you're saying, because, portraits are personal because they're of the people that you're doing them of. And in my case, most all of my portraits, even the commissions that I've been fortunate to do, have been of people that I know. So I've been very lucky that I can really invest myself in the portraiture because I know the people I'm working with. And even if I didn't, though, I've requested being able to either meet the people so that I can have some connection and understanding so that the portrait makes sense to me, or, if I can't, that I would talk to the people who are commissioning it to learn something about that person. Because it is. I think that's very sensitive. It's a very personal thing to do a portrait of someone. I mean, I have a portrait in a really dirty, area in our little dining area where my husband's been working on our kitchen, dining room table. But there's a portrait back here of my grandfather that I love very much when we talk about, personal portraits. That, the expressiveness that I'm going for, these came, obviously the clay portraits came before, and the bronze portraits before I started doing the paintings. But just to see the progression, that it wasn't like it sprung out of, it sprung magically, out of nowhere. All of a sudden I could do painting portraits, which I understand some people and painters alike, feel it's wonderful that I was able to find that, but I certainly had some understanding of the portrait before I came to the paintings.
Right. This is Jim Hayden, who's curator of Art in the Factory show. Not only did he help run and put together the show, but he also added by entering some of his works. Can you tell me about how you came to Roosevelt?
I came to Roosevelt about 6 years ago. Happened to ironically drive through the town, and the same day friends of mine who live over in Clarksburg had mentioned the town of Roosevelt itself. At the time I was looking for a home, so it seemed a natural transition just to at least check out the town, and that's how I came about. I eventually discovered the town through the '98 Festival of the Arts, which was a great introduction and cemented my idea of wanting to be here. My works are generally a bit personal, although they're based on human feelings, and I think they're all somewhat recognizable, but for lack of a better term, I call them modern abstract, although they've been described as other things, but I like to try to make paintings that will somehow provoke and involve the viewer. That's my own personal philosophy. I guess all art involves the viewer, but mine actually provokes some type of thought and reaction, I believe. A lot of my background is, whatever formal art background I have is based in commercial art and graphic design, so that's a natural addition to my painting and abstraction. I work mostly in acrylics, although I have done many multimedia and have even forayed into sculpture and carving at times. So.
And tell me also, knowing you, I know you live in one of the Bauhaus and design homes.
Yes. One of the original homes designed by Kastner and Louis Kahn. And lucky to have found a two-story dwelling on a great street, and as we're in it right now, what I call is my studio, and gives me good enough space and great light during the day, although today's kind of overcast, but it's great. And it was great to have the show in the factory structure too, which was one of the main parts of the original town and socio-economic structure that was set up as part of the town.